What is your "I don't get paid enough for this shit" story? Witness someone's literal "I don't get paid enough for this shit" story. I was at a showbiz, similar to Chuck E. Cheese, might even be the same place, for a relative's birthday. All the kids are running about having fun, playing games, etc. Suddenly there is a commotion around the ball pit. Turns out some kid has had a serious diarrhea Hershey squirt blowout and it is all over in the ball pit. The little plastic balls are all covered with a thin film of booty butter. I'm across the room from the Code Brown near the counter where you trade in tickets for fake mustaches and Laffy Taffy and shit. The manager tells this teenager he needs to get to the ball pit right away, and is trying to hand him a mop. Not sure what a mop will do in this situation, but I digress. Anywho, the teen is not having it and loudly says, "Nah bro, that ain't me," and strolls out the door and into the sunset. I was a nurse's assistant a few years ago. I took one of my many patients to the bathroom like any other day. She said she wasn't feeling well, but who feels good in a nursing home? So I'm watching her try to shit, and she turns ghost white and passed out. I yell for help and a nurse and a few other CNAs come to my aid. The lady ducking died. Sudden cardiac arrest. So now we have to carry her dead body to the bed so we can perform CPR. Now I'm sure that you have heard that people who die void their bowels. Well, that is no myth. It's happened to everyone I've watched die, and this was no exception. As soon as we picked her up off the toilet, this lady started to do what she died trying to do, shit like no tomorrow. At this point we realized that this lady has some serious internal bleeding and C. diff, Clostridium difficile. All you need to know about C. diff is that it makes you shit 100 times more than you normally would, and it smells 100 times worse. So here we are, carrying a dead lady by her arms and legs while she spews a sea of smelly orange shit and blood out of her ass and all over the floor. It looked like a scat scene gone wrong. Every inch of the floor covered in blood and rancid feces. Good news is that we were able to revive the lady and she kept on trucking for who knows how long. I made $9.50/hour. Minimum wage in my state is $8.50. Duck being a CNA. While I was still in training as an EMT, I got a call for a cardiac arrest. When we arrived, there was a very green-looking police officer sitting on the porch who had been called for a welfare check. He started to tell us that we didn't want to go in there. But it was too late. One of the paramedics had already opened the door. As soon as the door was opened, the smell hit us. Inside was the body of the man that lived there, and he had clearly been dead for quite some time. He had melted partially into the couch he was laying on, and what remained of his skin was dark gray. You could also clearly see the bones in his hands. He looked like a horror movie prop, and I have never smelled anything else like it. His neighbors said that they hadn't seen him since January, and it was April. Luckily my service doesn't transport bodies. Once we have verified that someone is without a doubt 100% dead, we alert the appropriate authorities and wait for them to arrive and take over. One thing we always have to do on these calls is attach limb leads and run a quick ECG for any sign of life. We have to do it even when it seems ridiculous. I am still not 100% sure if that is an actual rule or if they were ducking with me, because as soon as I finished my certification I got a job somewhere where contact with corpses is unlikely. So as the trainee, of course I had to do it. I am not sure if you have ever tried to put stickers on a rotten corpse, but they do not want to stay in place at all. That is the only call that has ever made me vomit. When I was in the Navy, I was a reactor operator. Once, while the power plant was shut down and cooled down, we had to go into the reactor compartment for some routine maintenance and inspections. Inside one of the locked compartments, which had been locked for several months and bombarded with radiation, there was a large spider. A large, living, translucent white spider. I noped the duck out. Sure, make all the Spider-Man jokes you want. But duck everything about large, see-through, irradiated spiders. Especially on an E5's pay. Nope. I was working at a gas station on Halloween. Pretty normal night, a bit more beer than usual. And then I see some kid walk by with his collar pulled up. He's walking a little odd. Then he walks back the way he comes, which is a little weird. Then I notice his friends walking up. I am looking at them and I see one is wearing a mask. Then I see a fire extinguisher in his hands. I start moving to the switch that controls the electric locks, but sadly I reached it half a second too late. Two kids hold the doors open and this little shit unloads an entire fire extinguisher into the store. Can't see shit, the entire store is filled with powdery haze. It took 8 hours to clean up. 8 hours closed for a 24-hour gas station. And it turns out, the whole point was to steal an 18 rack of duck in Keystone. Ducking kids. Edit. We had them on camera, but the managers decided it wasn't worth pursuing, I guess. Nothing came of it. None of them could have been over 17. They had two guys holding the doors open the whole time, so their friend who came in earlier, and I hadn't been paying attention to, could run out with the beer. The maglocks didn't matter since they had the door open first and kept it that way. And no, it isn't that they don't pay me enough to clean, they don't pay me enough to deal with some little dipshits who can plan something as elaborate as that and then take the shittiest beer in the store. Also, obligatory holy shit, I didn't think this would blow up like it did. A somewhat mentally deranged person that they had somehow deemed fit for society had to be vacated out of a house that was going to get demolished, and it was my job, and others on my team, to move out what could be saved. We ended up essentially just taking him with us, as nothing could be saved. He had mostly just furniture, which reeked with the most pungent odors that you cannot imagine. Here are some highlights. Important note, I have an iron nose and stomach, I don't really puke unless I'm very sick. 2 of my coworkers immediately puked upon entering his house, and they were unable to enter without puking even after that. Me and my boss had to check out the place ourselves. There was utter junk all over the house, it was very hard to move around. It was mostly newspapers, which leads me to my next point. This guy shat and pissed on the ducking floor and covered it with newspapers. The reason why he did this was because his toilet had entirely clogged up, and the high doorstep to the bathroom meant that there was about 2 to 3 inches of water, piss, diarrhea, and shit. When I initially opened the door to the bathroom, I had to go outside and get air immediately. I ended up gagging and very nearly puking from the concentrated fumes. My boss puked from just walking by the door after I had opened it. After evacuating him to his new place, we immediately washed the entire company car, big Toyota Hiace, because the whole car smelled like Satan's asshole, especially the place he had been sitting. 3 weeks after the incident, after having washed the vehicle 3 times, we could still smell his godforsaken aroma of fetid calamity. We ended up calling in a professional cleaning crew to fix it, as the stench permeated everything. TLDR, I ended up having to vacate Nurgle himself out of his pestilent den of disease, and he near permanently stink-bombed our car. I manage a supermarket. I was working one night and a customer comes running in saying that there was a brawl outside. I pulled out my phone and rang the police as I walked outside to assess the situation. I see half a dozen local ferals throwing punches. I start to tell the police what's happening while keeping a safe distance. Then one of the brawlers pulled out a bow and arrow. My thoughts, duck this shit, I'm out. Go on. What happened? Locked up a crackhead who hadn't showered in months. He had a house with running water and electricity. He just spent all his time getting high instead of maintaining his hygiene. I'll never forget the smell. A mix of shit and body odor. I don't think the guy wiped his ass. My car stunk the minute I put him in it. I rolled all the windows down and drove him to our jail cell. It was freezing outside but I didn't care. I would have puked everywhere if the windows were up. When I got to our cell we scrounged up some clothes to give him. His clothes were placed in a biohazard bag and they made me take them outside of the building. That's the first time I've ever seen them throw someone's clothes outside of the building because of how bad they smelled. My car stunk for over a week. I left the back windows down 24/7. No amounts of Lysol, bleach, Clorox, could get that smell out of the car. I always pack a lunch and eat in my car. I would have to get out of my car and eat far away from the car or else I'd gag from the odor. There was also the time we found a liquefied body inside a large plastic bin. In the middle of August during a heatwave. I have no idea how long the victim was in the bin, but human soup is a good word to describe what it looked like when we took the lid off. I drive a tow truck for AAA. Changing tires on major highways is always a blast. But the real fun is having to lay down on those highways while it's pouring down rain to hook cars up. But I think the absolute worst is getting into some people's vehicles. I had a guy tonight who apparently was a hoarder. The car was packed with bags of stuff. The driver's seat was the only thing that was kind of clear. The seat also had stains on it which I'm pretty sure were urine. And the smell, oh god the smell. It smelled like human waste mixed with garbage that had been left in the sun with a hint of dog food. I nearly vomited. The worst part was I took this car to a shop and the guy drove with me in my truck. I couldn't get the smell out for the rest of the night. I honestly feel bad for whoever has to work on that car tomorrow. Edit, slow down and move over for all roadside vehicles. I worked in popular nightclub at the time this happened. It was during a Pride event and we were slammed. Our capacity was 300 and ended up having over 1,000 people come in and out of the club in the 5 hours we were open. Somehow, someone was stabbed by the little coat hanger thing that's on the back of the bathroom stall door. This individual managed to bleed profusely all over the bathroom stall, half of our dance floor, and all over at least 30 individuals within the club, and no one noticed. I'm not kidding when I say that it looked like a damn crime scene, some serious Law and Order kind of shit. And yet somehow no one complained about the blood on themselves, the floor, or the bathroom until we turned the lights on. Cleaning up a shitload of semi-dried blood throughout our club after one, if not the, busiest time of the year was wretched. I was exhausted, gagging from the smell of blood, booze, drugs and, most likely, other bodily fluids. After several hours of scrubbing and then getting up a few hours later to work another event, I realized that I hated bar life and needed to get out or double my hourly rate. I work at a gym. I am only a front desk receptionist. I am a part-timer, also currently in college, getting paid minimum wage. I have been working at my location the longest out of all the other front desk people, so I often, especially on Sundays, open the gym and am there for 6 hours alone without any other employees since that's our slowest day of the week. I come in and open as usual and a lady comes up to me about 30 minutes later. Someone had pooped in the shower in the ladies' locker room and proceeded to try to waffle stomp it down. I was the one that had to clean it. Save my soul. A PT decided to have explosive diarrhea without giving us a warning when we were escorting her back to her room. She was naked so it got all over us. It's 1.5 hours into my shift and covered in watered down shit and I forgot my extra pair of scrubs at home. In that exact moment I thought I should get at least double my pay. Haha, nursing is so weird. There are some days I'm like, I can't believe how much money they're giving me to do this awesome job. And other days it's like, there is not enough money in the world to take responsibility for this circus. Standing in a freezer, scooping ice cream into hundreds of martini glasses, the banquets were usually around 500 to 900, with nothing but a couple pairs of flimsy disposable gloves on. Only to have the pastry chef say the balls weren't round enough and to do it all ducking again. I was pissed. Edit, I was wearing a chef's uniform, underwear, socks, and shoes in addition to the gloves. Used to be a conductor on a wine train and there were always white divorcees going out with their girlfriends who'd get a little too drunk and get belligerent. One night they tried to assault a Sikh man for doing 9/11 and I had to intervene to keep these 5 drunk women from killing this man. Used to work retail security, got threatened by a junkie with a dirty needle over a friend's box set. That was my last day. Edit, replying to a few questions. It happened in England, HMV to be precise, and no one told me life was gonna be this way. Clap 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 clap. No one told me I was getting AIDS today. My job's a joke, I'm broke and this junkie's DOA. I stayed up overnight with my bosses to prepare for CES, Consumer Electronics Trade Show in Vegas, world's largest trade show. Caught the plane in the morning, got a short night of sleep after over 40 hours of being awake. Woke back up, spent an entire day preparing our booth, presentation of our hardware and software for the week. As it got into the morning hours, it became apparent that our shit wasn't going to work, so I stayed up another night trying to cobble our software together. Our demo didn't work when we arrived at the booth, and I was behind a curtain editing code on 2 laptops trying to get the shit up. After another 30 hours of no sleep, was sent back in the afternoon after I finally got something working. Averaged about 5 hours of sleep the next 3 nights. I knew it was a stupid waste of time even then, but, looking back on it, I realize how shamefully dumb the whole thing was. As a teen I was working with the youth group from my church to help raise money for a trip. This guy had us over to his farm to do some work, fair enough. We get there and he has us clean out his chicken coops. Most of the rooms were at least 6 inches deep in poop, while the average was probably closer to 10 inches, and some of the corners got up to about 1.5 feet. Buried in this poop were dead chickens, as well as several dead cats that had gone missing. It was a terrible, much more death-filled morning than I was anticipating. There were probably 7 or 8 of us there for half a day, and while I don't know the number, the guy probably didn't pay us more than $100, so like $3 an hour per person. Edit, I'm glad my highest voted comment is about poop. Also, it has been pointed out that I'm bad at math, and the numbers I use don't make any sense together. I'm leaving it as is, keep me humble. The main point is that it was just a whole bunch of poo. Was earning minimum wage for working in a claims call center for a health insurance company. I was called regarding a query on a claim where the person owed a certain amount of money to a psychiatric hospital for overstaying in the facility when he capped out the amount his insurance allowed. He was not happy about this. He proceeded to berate and belittle me for 45 minutes, then put his wife on the phone, who told me in horrific detail how he tried to kill himself and why he needed to stay in the facility. It was gory, it was gruesome, and I still think about what she told me sometimes. At the end of the phone call, I went and locked myself in the bathroom and cried. It was then I decided the job was no longer worth it, especially on the money I was on. I stuck it out for a bit longer and then moved abroad. Best decision I ever made. A few. Security officer, I got into a fist fight with a truck driver because I took too long to make a copy of his paperwork so that he could leave. Copier was inside the building across the plant. This wasn't the only time, but this was the one where I was legit helping the guy. Butcher shop, I had a coworker start acting like freaking G.I. Joe while we were trying to close the department. Rolling between aisles and making actions and audible noises like he was mowing people down with an LMG. He didn't do anything and we got out 50 minutes late because I had to go back and do all of his stuff. Roofing, at $10 an hour. Pretty much everything. Pest extermination, when your co-worker kicks the hive of yellow jackets and neither of you are licensed to use the kill powder, so your squirrel job just turned into calling the boss to get him to take care of the problem. Every few days. Inbound call center, they call us for help, being told I'm worthless and useless and how much better his son is than I am because I wouldn't pay for a 300-mile taxi ride for his retarded kid that was drunk driving. Wasn't even my department, and it was my supervisor that actually transferred the douche to me while I was telling him that he needed to talk to the correct department. Thanks for listening to another episode of Reddit X. Subscribe and activate the notification bell so you won't miss any stories. Feel free to share your own stories below in the comments. Have a good day.